The first thing I saw when I walked up to my daughter's house that Christmas Eve wasn't the tree glowing in the window or the family gathered around the table. It was my grandson Danny sitting out on the front step in the freezing cold, bundled in nothing but a thin hoodie, his breath puffing out in the air. 10 years old, shivering, cheeks red from the wind, while inside I could hear the laughter and clinking glasses of people who should have been looking out for him. "Danny?" I said, my voice catching. His head snapped up, and for a second, he just stared at me like he wasn't sure I was real. Then he bolted off the step and ran straight into my arms, nearly knocking me backward. He was cold all through, shaking against me, but his voice came out strong. "Grandpa, I knew you'd come. I told them I wasn't going inside till you came." I held him close, my chest tightening with a mix of pride and anger. Pride that the boy still believed in me after all the time apart, and anger that not a single soul in that warm, glowing house had made sure he wasn't freezing out here alone. "You'll get sick sitting out here like this," I murmured, brushing the snow off his hair. "I don't care," he said stubbornly, looking up at me with those big eyes of his. "I told them I'd wait. I knew you'd come, Grandpa. I just knew it." Inside, through the frosted glass, I saw the silhouettes of my family moving around, their laughter spilling out faintly into the night. None of them were looking out the window. None of them noticed the boy was gone. Or maybe they noticed, and it just didn't matter as much to them as it should have. I felt the anger rise in me again, but Danny's small hand grabbed mine, his fingers icy against my skin. "Can we go for a walk? Just us?" he asked, almost pleading, and I didn't even hesitate. Together we turned away from the warm glow of that house and stepped into the quiet street, the snow crunching under our boots, the cold biting at our faces. I had no idea then how far that walk would take us, or what it would uncover. All I knew was that my grandson had chosen me over the warmth of his own home, and that meant something. Something big. We walked in silence for a while, our breaths puffing like smoke, our boots breaking the crust of ice on the sidewalk. Streetlights threw cones of yellow down on the snow, and the shadows of bare trees stretched long and thin across the white. Danny's small hand stayed wrapped tight in mine, and every so often he gave it a little squeeze, like he was making sure I was really there and not going to disappear back into whatever corner of his life I'd been pushed into. "You shouldn't be out here like this, Danny," I said after a bit. "Why didn't anyone make you go inside?" He shrugged, eyes fixed on the ground in front of him. "I told them I was waiting. Mom said I should come in, Dad too. But I told them no. I told them you'd be here, and I didn't want to miss you." Something twisted in me at that, something sharp and sad. Kids shouldn't have to fight to keep faith in people they love. They shouldn't have to sit out in the cold just to make sure they're not forgotten. "You shouldn't have to do that, kiddo," I said softly. "If I was a better man, you wouldn't have to wonder if I'd show up or not." He looked up at me then, his breath fogging between us. "You did show up. That stopped me. For all the ways I'd failed, all the excuses I'd made for keeping away, because of the fights with Claire, because of the way my son-in-law looked at me like I didn't belong, because of my own damn pride. Here was this boy, boiling it all down to one simple truth. I was there, and in his eyes, that was enough." We kept walking, our steps crunching in rhythm, until we reached the little park at the end of the block. The swings were covered in snow, the slides slick with ice, but Danny pulled me toward the bench by the trees. We brushed the snow off with our sleeves and sat down, the cold seeping through my jeans right away. For a while we didn't talk, just sat there, watching the snow come down, listening to the hush of it. Then Danny spoke, his voice small. "Why don't you come around anymore, Grandpa?" I felt that one like a punch to the chest. I'd expected it, sure, but expecting something doesn't make it easier to hear. "I messed things up with your mom and dad," I said finally. "We had a fight, and I let it keep me away longer than I should have." "What did you fight about?" he asked, looking up at me, curious more than accusing. "About stupid things," I said. "Money, pride. Who was right, who was wrong. None of it matters now. But sometimes grown-ups let their pride get in the way of what's important. And I'm sorry, Danny. I should have been there." He nodded, quiet for a while, then leaned against me. "I don't care about that stuff. I just wanted you to come." I put my arm around him, pulling him close, and for a moment I let myself breathe, let myself believe maybe I could still fix things, maybe it wasn't too late. But deep down, I knew nights like this don't happen without a cost. Something was broken in that house, broken deep, and me showing up tonight wasn't going to magically put it back together. Danny leaned against me on that park bench like it was the most natural thing in the world, like we hadn't gone years without seeing each other, like I hadn't missed whole seasons of his life, while I sat in my own house trying to convince myself that my silence was justified. His head pressed against my side, his breath slow and fogging into the cold, and I thought about how much a kid that age changes in just a few years. The last time I'd seen him, his legs barely reached the end of my lap. Now they dangled over the edge of the bench, boots swinging a little in the snow. He'd grown, and I hadn't been there to see it. "You ever get mad at Mom?" he asked suddenly. The question cut through the silence like a shovel hitting rock. "I don't know if mad is the right word," I said slowly. "I got hurt. And when you get hurt, sometimes it turns into anger, even if you don't mean it to. Your mom and me, we stopped hearing each other. We only heard ourselves." He nodded, thinking it over like he was trying to sort out what that meant. Kids don't miss much. They might not understand the words, but they catch the feelings underneath. "Dad says you don't know when to quit arguing," Danny said after a beat. That stung more than I wanted to admit. "Your dad's not wrong," I said with a half smile. "I've got a stubborn streak. Runs in the family, I think." Danny gave me a sideways look, like he was trying to decide if stubbornness was a curse or a badge of honor. "Did you and Dad ever get along?" he asked. I laughed, but there wasn't much joy in it. We had our moments. We used to fish together, play ball in the yard. We even built that tree house behind the old house one summer. But somewhere along the line, he decided I was too hard on him, and I decided he was too quick to turn away from me. Two proud men, neither willing to bend. Danny kicked at the snow under the bench, his little boots scraping the ice. "I like it better when you're here." I looked down at him, at his flushed cheeks and bright eyes, and I felt something crack inside me. This boy didn't care about who said what, or who was right, or who owed who an apology. He just wanted me there. He wanted family to mean something, the way it was supposed to. We sat there a long time, the snow piling up on the playground equipment, the streetlights glowing dim through the falling flakes. Eventually Danny shivered, and I realized we couldn't stay out there all night, not without freezing. "Come on," I said, standing up and brushing the snow off my coat. "Let's walk a little more, keep warm." He took my hand again, and we wandered through the neighborhood streets. Every house we passed seemed to glow with some kind of warmth. Music spilling out through cracked windows, laughter carrying into the night. The whole world seemed to be celebrating except us. "Do you miss Grandma?" Danny asked out of nowhere. That one hit me in a place I didn't touch too often. "Every day," I said quietly. "What was she like?" I smiled, though it hurt to do it. "She was strong. Kinder than me, smarter too. She had this way of making people feel like they mattered, like she was really listening when they talked. You would have loved her, Danny. She would have spoiled you rotten." "Mom doesn't talk about her much," he said. I nodded. "It's hard for your mom. Losing her mom when she was young, it left a mark. I think sometimes she blames me, because I didn't know how to fill that hole for her." We kept walking, and I found myself telling him stories I hadn't told in years, about how his grandma used to hum while she cooked, about the summer road trips we took in the beat-up station wagon, about how she could make a whole room laugh just by raising an eyebrow. Danny listened like every word mattered, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like my memories weren't just mine to carry anymore. But under all that, the anger simmered. Not at Danny, not at his questions, but at the house we'd left behind, full of people who had let this boy sit outside in the cold waiting for me. At one point Danny squeezed my hand and said, "Do you think they even noticed I was gone?" I stopped in my tracks. His voice wasn't bitter. It was small, almost afraid. "They noticed," I said carefully. They don't always understand the way you feel. Doesn't mean they don't love you. But it wasn't right, leaving you out there. That's on them, not you." He nodded slowly, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. That's the thing about kids. They believe what you tell them if they want to, but they also see the cracks. He'd seen enough to know the truth was more complicated. We walked until our feet ached, circling block after block, the snow coming down heavier. At one point Danny stopped and tilted his head back, catching flakes on his tongue, laughing. For a moment it was just that. The sound of his laugh in the cold night, sharp and clear, cutting through all the heaviness in my chest. But the night was wearing on, and I knew sooner or later we'd have to face the house again. My toes were numb, and Danny's steps were dragging. "Let's head back," I said finally. When we reached the yard, The house looked the same as when we'd left. Warm lights glowing, trees shining, laughter spilling faintly through the walls. I stood at the gate, staring at the front door, feeling that old stubbornness in me rise like a wall. Part of me wanted to march in there, call them out, demand they see what they'd done. But another part of me, older, maybe wiser, knew that barging in would only dig the hole deeper. Danny tugged on my hand. You coming in with me? I knelt down so we were eye to eye. Not tonight, buddy. Tonight was just for us. But I promise you, I'm not staying away anymore. You won't have to wait out in the cold for me again. His eyes shone, and he hugged me tight, his arms clinging like he didn't want to let go. Okay, he whispered. I walked him back to the porch. He hesitated at the door, looking at me one more time before slipping inside. The warmth swallowed him up, and the door closed behind him. I stood there in the falling snow, staring at the door that had shut me out years ago, and felt both fuller and emptier than I had in a long time. Fuller because of Danny, because he still believed in me. Emptier because I knew the fight with the rest of them was far from over. That was how the night ended. Me alone in the snow, the sounds of Christmas muffled behind the walls, and the knowledge settling in my bones that this was only the beginning of something I couldn't yet see the end of. The morning after Christmas, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest I couldn't shake. I'd gone home the night before to my empty house, the silence almost deafening after the sound of Danny's laugh in the snow. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling for what felt like hours, running through everything in my head. Him sitting out there on the porch waiting for me. The way he looked at me like I was the only one who mattered, and then the way the door had closed behind him, shutting me out all over again. I told myself maybe it would be different in the daylight. Maybe Claire would call. Maybe she'd seen Danny slip back inside with red cheeks and shaking hands and realized how wrong it was to let him sit out there waiting. Maybe she'd pick up the phone, swallow her pride, and tell me to come over. But the phone didn't ring. By noon, I couldn't sit around anymore. I shaved, put on a clean shirt, and grabbed the old thermos I used to take to work years ago. Filled it with hot coffee, something about it giving me a sense of purpose, like I wasn't just showing up empty-handed. Then I drove over. When I pulled up, the driveway was empty except for my son-in-law's truck. The snow had been shoveled clear, and the trash bins were out front, full of torn wrapping paper and cardboard boxes. The glow from the night before was gone. Curtains half drawn, trees still lit, but looking a little tired, like the magic had burned off overnight. I stood at the door for a long minute before knocking. I half expected Danny to fling it open, grinning like he had on the porch. But it wasn't him. It was Claire. She opened the door just wide enough to see me, her face tired, her voice flat. Dad, morning, I said, holding up the thermos like it was some kind of offering. Brought coffee. Thought maybe we could talk. She didn't smile, didn't move, just stood there, blocking the way inside. You shouldn't have come last night, she said quietly. The words hit harder than I expected. Claire, the boy was sitting out in the cold. I know, she cut me off. He told me he was waiting for you. He wouldn't listen. But you shouldn't have encouraged it. Encouraged it? My voice rose before I could stop it. He was freezing out there, Claire. He could have gotten sick. And I'm the one in the wrong for showing up? Her jaw tightened. She stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind her so no one inside would hear. This isn't about last night, she said. This is about years of you pushing and prodding, about you always needing to win every fight, about how you make everything harder than it has to be. I swallowed back the anger, trying to steady my voice. I'm not here to fight. I just want to see my grandson. He shouldn't have to sit out in the cold to feel like I care about him. Claire's eyes softened for just a second, but then she shook her head. You can't just walk back in and act like nothing happened. It doesn't work like that. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The cold bit at my ears, the thermos heavy in my hand. Finally, I nodded, turned to go. Tell him I stopped by, I said, my voice low. I didn't look back as I walked to the truck. I spent the next week restless, caught between anger and guilt. I didn't call, and they didn't either. But Danny stayed on my mind. Every time I tried to distract myself, I'd hear his voice. I knew you'd come, Grandpa. I just knew it. So I went back again, this time in the evening when I figured he'd be home from school. I parked down the street, not wanting to spook Claire or her husband. And sure enough, after a few minutes, I saw him out in the yard, bundled up better this time, tossing a football to himself. Danny, I called softly. His head snapped up, and his face lit like a lamp. He ran straight for me. Grandpa, you came again. I crouched down, caught him in a hug. Course I did. What kind of grandpa would I be if I didn't? We sat on the curb, talking about school, about the book he was reading, about the Lego set he got for Christmas. He was sharp, full of questions, curious about everything. And then, just when I thought the evening would stay light, he looked me square in the eye and asked something that chilled me. Grandpa, do you ever feel like people are watching you? Like even when nobody's around? The hair stood up on the back of my neck. What do you mean? I asked carefully. He shrugged, glancing toward the house like he wasn't sure he should be saying it. Sometimes I see things. Lights in the sky. Or I hear this buzzing, like right before the phone rings, only nobody else notices it. Mom tells me it's my imagination. Dad gets mad if I talk about it. But I know it's real. I stared at him, unsure what to say. Part of me wanted to laugh it off, chalk it up to a kid's imagination. But the way he said it, the seriousness in his eyes, made me pause. What kind of lights? I asked finally. Blue ones, he whispered. Like fireflies, only they moved too fast. I saw them the night you came. When I was sitting on the porch. I thought maybe they were waiting for you too. A cold shiver ran through me. I wanted to tell him he was imagining things, but the truth was, I'd seen strange lights myself over the years, driving late at night, walking the back roads. Always brushed them off as planes or tricks of the eyes. But now, hearing it from him, it felt heavier, like a thread pulling at something bigger. Before I could say more, the front door opened and his dad's voice boomed out. Danny, inside, now. Danny's face fell. He hugged me quick, whispered, don't forget me, and then ran back to the house. I sat there on the curb, the cold seeping through my coat, my heart pounding with a mix of anger, fear, and something I couldn't name. The boy was right. Something was happening, and I had no idea how deep it went. By morning I was pacing the kitchen, drinking coffee that had gone cold before I finished half the cup. I thought about calling Claire, but I knew how that would go. She'd shut me down before I got 2 sentences out. So instead I drove out to the edge of town, where the fields open up and the sky feels too big for the land beneath it. I stood there a while, scanning the horizon like a fool, half expecting to see the blue lights Danny had talked about. I didn't see anything, but I felt it, this unease that settled into my bones. Like maybe the boy knew something the rest of us didn't. A few days later, I went back to the house. I told myself I just wanted to see Danny, to make sure he was okay. But if I'm honest, I wanted answers. This time I didn't make it far. Claire's husband, Mark, was the one who met me at the door. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, with that tight-jawed look that says he's already decided he doesn't like you. What do you want, Henry? He asked, blocking the doorway. I came to see my grandson, I said, keeping my voice steady. He shook his head. Not today. Not after the stunt you pulled. What stunt? I asked. You know damn well. Filling his head with nonsense, sneaking around like you're the only one who cares about him. You're confusing the boy. Confusing him? My voice rose sharp. The only thing confusing that boy is being told to ignore what he sees, what he feels. He's not stupid. He knows something's wrong. Mark stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind him. His eyes narrowed. You stay away from him, Henry. I mean it. You come around here again without us saying so, I'll call the cops. I laughed, though there wasn't any humor in it. The cops? For a grandfather wanting to see his grandson? You don't get it, Mark said, his voice low, dangerous. This family doesn't need your drama. Whatever you and Claire have between you, it ends here. You keep dragging Danny into it, you're gonna regret it. For a moment I thought about swinging on him, old as I am. My fists clenched, blood pounding in my ears. But I didn't. I turned, walked back down the steps, my boots crunching hard against the snow. I didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. But inside, I was breaking. That night, just after midnight, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it, heart racing. It was a text. From an unknown number. Don't forget me. 2 minutes later, another one came through. They're lying. I know what I saw. I knew it was Danny. No one else would send me something like that. I sat there in the dark, staring at the glow of the screen, torn between calling him back and worrying his folks would catch him. Finally, I typed a reply. I believe you. Always. The little delivered checkmark popped up, but no response came. I lay awake the rest of the night, my chest tight. Something was happening to that boy, something bigger than a family feud. And I was powerless to stop it. The next week was the worst. Claire wouldn't answer my calls. When I drove by the house, the curtains were drawn tight. It was like they'd locked Danny away, like they were trying to erase me from his life all over again. Then, one cold Saturday morning, I saw it with my own eyes. I was out by the old mill road, the one that cuts through the cornfields, when I spotted something strange in the sky. At first I thought it was just a plane, the sun glinting off the metal. But it moved wrong. Too fast, too smooth. Then it stopped dead, hung there like a star, and for a split second I swore I saw it flicker blue. And then it was gone. I stood there in the field, heart hammering, breath clouding in the cold, and all I could think was, the boy was right. Danny wasn't making it up. He'd seen what I just saw. And if he was right about that, what else was he right about? I didn't get to talk to him again. Not that week, not the next. Every attempt I made was shut down. And then, one evening, just as the sun was setting, I drove past the park where we'd sat together on Christmas Eve. The swings swayed in the wind. The snow was packed down in patches, and there, etched into the frost on the bench, were the words, "Waiting for Grandpa." I don't know if Danny did it with a stick, or if he just dragged his finger through the ice. But seeing it there, plain as day, broke something in me. He was still waiting, still holding on. But I wasn't there. I couldn't be. And that's how Act 2 ended for me. Not with a fight, not with closure, but with the sharp ache of failure. My grandson was out there, scared and alone with truths too big for a boy to carry, and I couldn't reach him. I walked back to my truck that night feeling like the cold had finally settled into my bones for good. After the park, after finding those words scratched into the frost, I stayed away. Not because I wanted to, but because I was out of options. Claire had slammed the door shut. Mark had threatened me, and every attempt I made to see Danny ended with me staring at closed curtains, my own reflection looking back at me from the glass. But the boy stayed in my mind. Waiting for Grandpa. That phrase ate at me, kept me up at night. I'd sit in my chair in the dark, the TV buzzing low, and picture him out there somewhere, looking at the sky for those lights, hearing that buzzing sound only he seemed to notice. One night, close to 2 in the morning, I finally gave up on sleep and went out driving. The roads were empty, the snowplows long finished, the streets shining under the moon. I didn't have a destination, just the old habit of moving when I couldn't sit still. That's when I saw her. A figure standing by the side of the road near the old gas station that had been closed for years. At first I thought it was a hitchhiker, maybe someone stranded. I slowed, rolled down my window. "You all right?" I called. She stepped closer, the beam of my headlights catching her face. She was older, maybe mid-50s, bundled in a heavy coat, her hair pulled back tight. But her eyes stopped me cold. They had the same unsettled look I'd seen in Danny's, like she'd been carrying something too heavy, too strange, for too long. "You're Henry Callahan," she said. Not asked. Said. My stomach dropped. "Do I know you?" "Not yet. But I know you. And I know your grandson." Every instinct told me to drive off right then. But something in her voice, steady, certain, made me stay put. "Who are you?" I asked. "Name's Marlene," she said. "And if you care about that boy, you need to listen." I pulled the truck over, heart thudding. "Go on." She leaned down to my window, lowered her voice. "Your grandson isn't imagining things. The lights, the buzzing. I've seen them too. A lot of us have." I felt the hair rise on my arms. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying he's part of something bigger. Something that's been going on for a long time. And if you don't protect him, they'll take him." The words hit me harder than I could process. "Take him? Who?" She glanced around the empty street, then back at me. "Not here. It's not safe to talk out in the open. Tomorrow. Old diner on Route 6, noon. Bring cash. Don't tell anyone." Before I could ask more, she turned and disappeared into the shadows behind the boarded-up station. I sat there a long time, engine idling, breath fogging up the windshield. My heart pounded like I'd just been in a fight. Was she crazy? Maybe. But something about her, the certainty in her voice, the way she'd said they'll take him, felt too real to ignore. The next day, I drove to the diner. Place hadn't changed much in 30 years. Cracked vinyl booths, coffee burnt half the time, pies in the glass case that looked older than the waitress. Marlene was already there, sitting in the back booth, a cup of coffee untouched in front of her. She nodded as I slid into the seat across from her. "You came. Figured I'd hear you out," I said. She studied me for a long moment, like she was weighing whether I could handle what she was about to say. Then she leaned in. They've been watching us for decades. The lights, the sounds, the missing time. Most people ignore it. Pretend it's nothing. But it's not nothing. It's them. I felt my throat go dry. Aliens. She didn't flinch. Call them what you want. They're not from here. And your grandson, he's marked. Marked how? He can hear them, she said simply. Most can't. A few can. And the ones who can, they don't stay the same. I shook my head. This sounds crazy, she finished for me. I thought the same. Until I woke up in a field one night with burns on my arms and an hour of my life missing. Until I saw the same blue lights your grandson saw. Until I found out I wasn't the only one. Her eyes locked onto mine. They want him, Henry. Kids like him. Sensitive. Open. They take them because kids don't fight back the way adults do. If you don't protect him, he won't be around much longer. My hands clenched on the table. Protect him from what? How the hell am I supposed to fight something like that? Marlene leaned back, her face softening. That's why you found me. You can't do it alone. None of us can. But together, maybe we've got a chance. I sat there, the noise of the diner fading into nothing, my whole world tilting under me. I thought about Danny, about his small hand gripping mine, about the way he'd whispered, "Don't forget me." Maybe he hadn't been talking about family at all. Maybe he'd meant something bigger, something I didn't understand yet. I didn't eat much at the diner that day. Ordered eggs, pushed them around on the plate, never touched them. My stomach was twisted into knots the whole time Marlene talked. She had this way of speaking that was both calm and urgent, like she'd practiced it, like she'd had to convince other people before me. I kept looking at her hands while she talked, scarred along the forearms, little white burns shaped like nothing I could name. She didn't hide them. When the waitress came by to refill her coffee, she just set her arm back on the table, scars and all, like they didn't matter anymore. You're saying they've taken you? I asked finally, my voice low. She didn't blink. More than once. And they what? Did tests on you? She leaned back, her mouth tight. They don't test. They harvest. Samples. Fluids. Memories. You wake up feeling like a part of you isn't yours anymore. Like they've stripped something away you can't name. The way she said it made my skin crawl. And Danny? I asked. He's young. Sensitive. Kids like that, they don't need to strip anything away. They just tune in. Her words rattled around in my head. Tune in. Like he was a radio and they'd found the right frequency. What do they want with him? I asked. She gave me a look that made my stomach drop. What they always want. Control. I shook my head, trying to process. So what am I supposed to do? I can't even get inside the damn house without Mark threatening to call the cops. How the hell am I supposed to protect him from? I stopped, searching for the right word. From them? Marlene sipped her coffee, then set it down slow. First you have to understand the truth. All of it. Once you see, you can't unsee. And then you'll know what to do. I let out a shaky breath. And how do I get to the truth? Her eyes flicked toward the window, as if checking for shadows. You don't go looking. You wait. They'll come to you. That night, I couldn't shake her words. I sat in my chair, the TV flickering, but I wasn't watching it. Every sound outside had me on edge. A car passing, a dog barking. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt like it was drilling into my ears. I dozed off sometime after midnight. When I woke, the house was glowing faint blue. At first I thought it was just the TV screen, but when I looked, the TV was off. The glow was coming from the window. I stood, my legs heavy, and pulled the curtain back. The yard was bathed in light, soft, pulsing, unnatural. And above the trees, low and silent, hung 3 lights in a triangle. Blue, shifting, steady. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd pass out. I tried to step back, but my body wouldn't listen. It was like the air itself had thickened, pinning me in place. My ears rang, sharp and high-pitched, and for a moment everything went white. When I came to, I was on the floor. The clock said 3:17 a.m. I had no memory of the last 2 hours. And on my arm, just below the elbow, was a small mark, red, circular, tender like a burn. I lay there a long time, staring at it, my heart refusing to slow. Danny hadn't been lying. Neither had Marlene. Whatever this was, I was part of it now too. The next morning, I drove straight to Marlene's. She lived in a trailer on the edge of town, the kind with rust creeping up the sides and old wind chimes clanging in the cold. She opened the door before I knocked, like she'd been waiting. They came, she said simply. I nodded, pulling back my sleeve. Left this. She looked, then nodded. Same as mine. Why me? I asked. You asked for the truth, she said. And once you open that door, they don't let you shut it. I sat at her table while she made tea, my hands trembling around the chipped mug she handed me. You said I'd know what to do once I understood, I said. Well, I get it now. They're real. They're here. But what the hell do I do about Danny? She sat across from me, her face lined, her eyes heavy with something that looked like pity. You fight, she said. Not with fists. Not with guns. With belief. With presence. With refusal. They can't take what you don't give. You anchor him. You remind him he belongs here, not to them. Her words sounded thin compared to the weight of what I'd seen. But in my gut, I knew she was right. Danny didn't need me to win some war against shadows in the sky. He needed me to stand in front of him and not move, no matter how strong the pull got. That night, I sat by my phone, waiting for a text that didn't come. Every hour I checked, hoping Danny would reach out again. Nothing. Finally, near dawn, the phone buzzed. Just one word. Help. I called immediately, but the line went dead before it rang once. I drove faster than I should have to Claire's house. Parked 2 blocks away, heart hammering. The curtains were drawn, the house dark except for a dim light upstairs. And then I saw him. Danny, standing at his bedroom window, staring out into the night. His face pale, his eyes wide. And behind him, for just a second, I thought I saw it. A glow, faint and blue, filling the room. And then the light went out. I sat there in my truck, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles cracked, knowing the truth had finally arrived in full. This wasn't just family trouble. This was a fight for the boy's very soul. Didn't go home after I saw Danny in that window. I couldn't. I parked my truck at the end of the block and sat there all night, engine off, breath fogging the windshield, eyes glued to the house. I told myself I'd leave when the sun came up, but when dawn finally bled over the rooftops, I was still there. I watched the front door like a hawk. Around 7, Mark came out, his coat zipped tight, coffee thermos in one hand. He scraped ice off his windshield, muttering to himself, then drove off. Claire left an hour later, carrying a stack of files, her heels crunching on the snow. That left Danny alone. The moment she turned the corner, I was out of the truck. I jogged down the block, my knees aching, my breath sharp in the cold. I knocked fast, glancing over my shoulder like someone might be watching. It took a minute, but then the door cracked open. Danny's face peeked out. His eyes were dark and heavy, like he hadn't slept. Grandpa. His voice was barely above a whisper. Danny, you okay? He shook his head. They come at night. I can't stop them. I told Mom, but she says it's dreams. Dad says if I keep talking about it, he'll take my phone. My gut twisted. That text, you sent me help. He nodded quick. They were in my room. I couldn't move, couldn't talk. But my phone was in my hand, so I typed it. Then they made it go away. I looked at him, at the fear swimming in those young eyes, and I knew then this wasn't just about me showing up for a family dinner anymore. This was war. Get your coat, I said. We're going for a drive. He hesitated, glancing back into the house. If Dad finds out. Forget your dad, I said firmly. You're coming with me. He nodded, ran upstairs, and came back a minute later bundled in a heavier jacket, backpack slung over one shoulder. We slipped out, quiet as thieves, and were back in my truck before anyone could see. We drove without talking, the tires crunching over frozen slush. After a while, Danny spoke. Where are we going? Someplace safe, I said, though I didn't know where that was yet. Away from the house. Away from the lights. He leaned against the window, his breath fogging the glass. Grandpa, do you believe me? I glanced at him. Of course I do. Even about the voices? That made my grip tighten on the wheel. Voices? He nodded slowly. They talk in my head. Not words. More like feelings. They want me to follow. To not be afraid. Sometimes it feels good, like being wrapped in a blanket. But other times it's cold, like they're pulling me out of myself. A chill ran through me. When did it start? After you came, he said quietly. That night I waited outside. I felt them. Like they were waiting too. His words landed heavy in my chest. Part of me wondered if I'd brought this to him somehow. If my showing up had opened a door neither of us could close. I drove us out past the edge of town, toward the old quarry where no one went anymore. We parked near the frozen pit, the trees skeletal in the winter air. Why here, he asked. Because no one else is, I said. We got out, The wind biting our faces, the silence pressing down. For a while we just stood there, the crunch of our boots echoing. Then Danny turned to me, his face pale. "They're here," he whispered. I froze. "What do you mean?" He pointed to the sky. And sure enough, just above the tree line, I saw it. A faint shimmer, like heat rising off asphalt. It flickered, then steadied. 3 blue lights forming that same triangle I'd seen above my own house. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Don't look at them," I told him, pulling him close. "Look at me." But his eyes were locked upward, wide, unblinking. "They're calling," he murmured. I shook him, firm but gentle. "Danny, stay with me. You hear me? You're not going anywhere." His small body trembled, his lips moving soundlessly. And in that moment, I felt it too. The hum, deep in my chest, vibrating through my bones. It wasn't sound exactly, more like pressure, filling every part of me. It whispered without words. "Let go, let go, let go." I gritted my teeth, held him tighter. "No," I growled into the wind. "You can't have him." The lights pulsed once, twice, then faded, leaving the sky empty. The hum vanished. Danny sagged against me, exhausted. "Grandpa," he whispered, "I don't know if I can fight them." "You don't have to," I said, brushing the hair from his forehead. "That's my job." We stayed out there until the sky dimmed, then drove back into town. I didn't take him home. I brought him to my place instead. It wasn't much, peeling paint, old furniture, the smell of coffee ground into the walls, but it was mine. And that night, for the first time, my house felt alive again. I cooked him grilled cheese, poured him hot chocolate, let him sprawl on the couch watching old cartoons. He laughed, a tired laugh, but real. And for a moment, I almost believed things could be okay. But deep down I knew better. This wasn't over. It was only beginning. I don't think I slept more than a few minutes that night. Danny lay on the couch wrapped in blankets, his small chest rising and falling steady, finally at peace. But I stayed in the chair by the door, shotgun across my lap, eyes on the window. Every car that passed outside made me grip it tighter. Every flicker of light in the sky had me holding my breath. Around 3 in the morning, I heard it again, the hum. Low at first, like the distant throb of a generator, then rising until the glass in the window rattled. Danny stirred, muttered something in his sleep, and I felt it push against me. That same wordless pull. "Let go, let go." I gritted my teeth and whispered into the dark. "Not tonight." The hum eased, faded, like the sound of waves retreating. I sat there until dawn, every muscle tight, waiting for it to return. It didn't. When Danny woke, he looked around, disoriented. Then he saw me, and his face softened. "You didn't leave," he said. "Never," I told him. By mid-morning, the knock came. Loud. Sharp. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Claire stood there, Mark behind her, both of them furious. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Claire snapped the moment she saw Danny in my living room. "Protecting him," I said evenly. "Protecting him?" Mark barked. "By kidnapping him." "He came with me," I said. "I didn't force him. He asked for help, and I gave it." Claire stepped inside, her eyes burning. "Danny, get your things. You're coming home." Danny shrank back against the couch, eyes flicking to me. "I don't want to." Her face twisted, hurt and angry all at once. "Danny, please. This isn't a game." "It's not a game," he whispered. "They're real, Mom. The lights. The voices. Grandpa saw them too." For a moment, the room went still. Claire turned to me, her voice shaking. "You told him that." "I didn't have to," I said quietly. "He knew before I did." Mark stormed forward, grabbed Danny by the arm. "Enough. We're leaving." Danny cried out, and I was on my feet in an instant, shotgun in my hands. "Let him go." My voice was steady, but inside I was shaking. Mark froze, his eyes wide. "You've lost your damn mind." "Maybe," I said. "But you're not taking him." Claire stepped between us, her hands raised. "Dad, put it down. Please. This isn't you." I looked at her, my daughter, the little girl I'd once carried on my shoulders, the woman who now looked at me like I was a stranger. My chest ached. "Maybe you don't believe him," I said, my voice breaking. "Maybe you think it's all in his head. But I've seen it. I felt it. And I'll be damned if I let him face it alone." We stood there, locked in a standoff, the air thick with years of hurt and pride. Then, before anyone could move, the hum returned. Low, rising, filling the room until the walls shook. Danny clutched his head, screaming. They're here. Blue light poured through the windows, flooding the living room, casting everything in cold fire. Claire gasped, covering her mouth. Mark dropped Danny's arm, staring in shock. I moved fast, pulling Danny against me, shielding him with my body. The hum grew louder, the light brighter, until it was blinding. Stay with me, Danny, I shouted over the roar. Don't listen to them. Stay here. He shook in my arms, his small fists gripping my shirt. Grandpa, I can't. Yes, you can. I roared. I've got you. You're not going anywhere. For a moment, I thought I'd lose him. Felt his body go slack, felt the pull trying to rip him away. I held on tighter, every muscle straining, my old bones screaming in protest. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the hum stopped. The light vanished. The room was silent, except for Danny's ragged sobs. I held him close, rocking him like he was a baby again. My arms ached, my chest burned, but I didn't let go. Not until he finally whispered, "They're gone." When I looked up, Claire was crying. Mark was pale, his jaw slack. You saw it, I said hoarsely. Both of you. Now tell me I'm crazy. Claire covered her face, shaking her head. Mark backed toward the door, muttering, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. No one said another word. That night, after they left, Danny sat with me at the kitchen table, his eyes still wide, his face pale. They'll come back, he said. Then we'll fight again, I told him. But what if they win? I reached across the table, took his hand in mine. My voice cracked when I spoke. Then they'll have to take me first. He squeezed my hand, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't just fear. It was faith. Faith in me. The day after the light came into my house, the world felt different. Not just to me, to all of us. Claire couldn't look me in the eye when she came back in the morning. Mark didn't say a word, just paced the living room like a caged animal. Danny stuck close to me, never more than an arm's reach away, his small hand always finding mine like he was afraid I might vanish if he let go. We didn't talk about what happened right away. Nobody wanted to. But the silence between us was heavier than words. Finally, Claire broke it. I saw it, she whispered, her voice shaking. I can't explain it, but I saw it. Mark stopped pacing, looked at her like she'd betrayed him. Don't start. We don't know what we saw. We do, I said. My voice was flat, tired, but certain. We all know. Mark's face tightened, his jaw clenching. And what are we supposed to do, Henry? Huh? Just sit around waiting for that to happen again? No, I said quietly. We stand together. That's the only way. Claire's eyes brimmed with tears. But I don't know how. I looked at her, my daughter, the little girl who used to fall asleep in the back seat of my truck after softball games, the woman who now looked older than she should have. You start by believing him, I said, nodding toward Danny. That's all he's ever needed. Danny's hand tightened in mine, and I felt his small body lean against me. That night, after they left, Danny and I sat on the porch. The snow had stopped falling, the sky clear and sharp, stars scattered like broken glass. He tilted his head back, staring at them. Do you think they're watching now? He asked. Probably, I said honestly. He was quiet for a moment. Then maybe we should talk to them. I turned to him, startled. Talk to them. He nodded. If they want me so bad, maybe I should ask why. The thought chilled me. Danny, you don't owe them a damn thing. You hear me? Not a thing. But what if they're not bad? He asked softly. What if they just don't know how to ask? I had no answer for that. None that didn't sound like fear. Over the next few days, I noticed changes in him. Little things at first. He seemed older somehow, like the fear had sharpened him, made him think in ways a boy his age shouldn't have to. He'd ask questions that caught me off guard, about life, about death, about what it means to belong somewhere. Grandpa, he asked one morning while we ate breakfast, what happens if you stop being yourself? If something takes it away? I set down my coffee, stared at him. Then you fight to get it back. And if you can't, I leaned across the table, put my hand over his. Then the people who love you fight for you. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. One evening, Marlene came by. She stepped into my kitchen like she'd always belonged there, carrying a stack of old notebooks. You're not alone, she told Danny, setting the notebooks on the table. Others like you have written their stories. It helps, knowing you're not crazy. Danny flipped through them, his eyes wide. Pages filled with drawings of lights, words scrawled in shaky handwriting about missing time, strange voices, the same hum we'd both felt. They all felt it too, he asked. Marlene nodded. And most of them grew up just fine. Different, maybe, but whole. Danny looked at me then, his eyes searching mine. See, Grandpa, maybe I can be okay. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But I also knew that nothing about this was simple. That night, after Danny went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with Marlene. He's stronger than I thought, I admitted. She nodded. Kids usually are. But strength isn't enough. He needs anchors. You. His mom, if she can come around. Maybe even his dad, if he stops running from what he saw. I rubbed my face, exhausted. And if it happens again? It will, she said simply. The question is what you'll do when it does. I stared at her, my throat tight. I'll hold on. Same as before. She shook her head gently. It won't be enough next time. You need to be ready to let go, too. Her words sat in my chest like a stone. In the days that followed, Danny seemed to settle. He laughed more, slept better. We played cards at the kitchen table, shoveled snow together, even baked cookies one afternoon that came out burnt but still edible. For a moment, it felt like life again. But under it all, I could feel it, the waiting, the quiet before the storm. And sure enough, one night it came back. The hum, the light. Only this time, it didn't stop. It began just after midnight. The windows glowed blue, brighter than before, the hum rattling dishes on the shelves. Danny shot up in bed, clutching his head, eyes wide with terror. Grandpa, he screamed. I was at his side in seconds, holding him, whispering, I'm here, I've got you. The walls shook, the floor trembled, and then, impossibly, the ceiling itself seemed to open, the light pouring down like a column. Danny's body lifted. Not high, just a few inches, but I felt it, the pull tugging him from my arms. I held on with everything I had, my arms straining, my old body screaming. No, I warned. He's not yours. The pull grew stronger, the light blinding, the hum deafening. Danny screamed, tears streaming down his face. Grandpa, I've got you. I cried, my voice breaking. I won't let go. And for a moment, I thought maybe love was enough. Maybe my arms, my stubborn old heart, could win. But then I remembered Marlene's words. You need to be ready to let go. The truth hit me like ice. This wasn't just about holding on. It was about teaching him he could stand on his own, that he didn't belong to them, or even to me. I pulled him close, pressed my forehead to his, and whispered, Danny, listen to me. You're stronger than them. Stronger than me. You can tell them no. You can stay. His eyes locked on mine, terrified but shining. I can't, he sobbed. Yes, you can, I whispered fiercely. Because you're mine. Because you're here. Because I believe in you. The light pulsed, the hum roared, and then, slowly, I felt it shift. The pull weakened. Danny's body lowered, his small frame trembling in my arms. And then the light was gone. Just like that. We collapsed together on the bed, both of us shaking, gasping for air. I did it, he whispered, his voice raw. I told them no. I held him close, tears streaming down my face. You did. You really did. And in that moment, I knew the fight wasn't over. Maybe it never would be. But he'd taken the first step. And as long as I was alive, I'd be there to make sure he didn't have to take the next one alone. The morning after the light almost took him, Danny slept late. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my hands, the skin thin and spotted, the veins raised. Old hands, but still strong enough to hold on one more night. Strong enough to give him the chance to say no for himself. When he finally came out of the bedroom, he looked tired but lighter, like something had shifted inside him. He poured himself cereal, sat across from me, and ate in silence. After a while he said, They'll come back. I nodded. I know. But I told them no, he said, his voice small but steady. And they listened. I reached across the table, rested my hand on his. That was all you, Danny. Not me. You. He looked down at our hands, then back up at me. What if next time they don't listen? Then we fight again, I said simply. That's all we can do. Fight as long as it takes. Claire came by that afternoon. Alone. She sat in my kitchen, her hands folded tight in her lap, her eyes on Danny as he built a Lego tower on the floor. I don't know what to do, she admitted. I don't even know what to believe anymore. You believe your son? I said. She looked at me then, her eyes wet. I was so scared, Dad. If I admitted it was real, then I had to admit I couldn't protect him. And I couldn't live with that. You don't have to do it alone, I told her. None of us do. She nodded, but her shoulders slumped like the weight of it was too much. Mark won't talk about it, she whispered. He just keeps saying it didn't happen, that it was some trick of the lights. I don't know how long we can keep going like this. I looked at her, at my daughter who had spent years angry at me, and for the first time I saw her not as the enemy of my pride, but as someone carrying her own private war. You'll keep going, I said softly. Because you don't get to quit when it's your kid. You just keep going, no matter what. That night, after Danny was asleep, Claire and I sat on the porch. The air was sharp, the sky cloudless. She smoked a cigarette, something I hadn't seen her do in years. You ever wonder why us? She asked. Why Danny? Why our family? All the time, I admitted. She exhaled, smoke curling around her face. Do you think they'll ever stop? I shook my head. No. But maybe he'll get strong enough that it won't matter. We sat in silence after that, watching the stars. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a fragile rhythm. Danny stayed with me more often, sometimes for a night, sometimes for a weekend. We cooked, played cards, walked through the snow-covered fields. He still heard the hum sometimes, still saw flickers of light out of the corner of his eye, but he didn't crumble the way he used to. He'd look at me, steady himself, and say, "Not tonight." And I'd nod, proud as I've ever been. One evening, Marlene came back. She brought a battered tape recorder with her. "Listen," she said, pressing play. The tape hissed, then filled with a low hum, steady and pulsing. My stomach turned. Danny stiffened beside me. "That's it," he whispered. "That's the sound." Marlene nodded. "Recorded it 2 years ago, out by the quarry. I play it sometimes, to remind myself it's real." "Why show us this?" I asked. "Because it doesn't end," she said simply. "It never ends. You don't beat them. You endure them. That's the truth no one wants to hear." Her words hung heavy in the air. After she left, Danny sat on the porch steps, staring at the snow. "Is that really it, Grandpa? Just endure?" I sat beside him, the cold biting through my jeans, and thought hard before answering. Maybe, but enduring isn't nothing. Enduring is how you win when winning isn't an option. He was quiet for a long time, then leaned his head against my shoulder. "I can do that," he whispered. And I believed him. The last night of winter came with no warning. The sky lit blue again, the hum filling the air, stronger than ever. Danny grabbed my hand, his eyes wide, but this time he didn't scream. "They're calling," he said, his voice trembling but steady. "What are you going to say?" I asked. He looked at me, his small hand gripping mine tight. "No." And he said it out loud, into the night. "No." The hum faltered. The light flickered. "No," he shouted again louder. "You can't have me." And then, just like that, the sky went dark. We stood there, breathless, staring at the empty stars. Danny turned to me, his face pale but proud. I did it again. I hugged him, my chest breaking with pride and fear all tangled together. "You did," I whispered. "You really did. That was the last time the lights came. For now, anyway."